Hey everybody, good morning. My name's Chris Livingstone. I am the author of Santa Inc., which is right here. And thank you very much for the world's biggest virtual Christmas market 2020, for hosting me today. It's great to be here with everyone. I wanted to tell you a little bit about my new book that has recently come out called Santa Inc. And I'll be taking questions as well from anyone that wants to put a question in the chat. Welcome to do that, and we'll do the Q&A in just a little bit. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm an author, and this is my third book right now, Santa Inc. I started writing it about 2 years ago, so it's more than that, actually nearly 3 years ago. So it's a great feeling to finally get these things out into the world and have people read and enjoy them. I'm based here in California, although you probably can't tell that from my accent, but I've been living in California for well over 10 years now. So it's still beautiful weather in California. So despite the fact that it feels Christmassy in my own house, yeah, we've still got a way to go till the weather gets cooler and it actually feels that way outside. Nevertheless, we always make a big deal out of the holiday season in this house, and that's really one of the reasons that I wanted to write a book like this. It's really designed, well, it was intended for kids and adults and families alike. So pretty much I think anyone can enjoy it. It's kind of a new take on the Christmas/Santa story. And I will tell you a little bit about it without giving too much away. So it revolves, in fact, the story is pretty much summed up on the front there. It's called Santa Inc. It's about an 8-year-old boy called Eric who lives in a orphanage in New York, and the orphanage is a pretty grim and unforgiving place to live. And what happens is one day he gets locked in a basement and basically finds his way through to Santa Inc., which is a big skyscraper next door. And that from that point onwards, all sorts of adventures and the like happen to Eric. And so it's kind of written in the sense of maybe like a Roald Dahl story or even Charles Dickens. It's got this kind of slightly grim undertone to it, but then there's a real happy ending outcome to the story. And I've had people ask me, what gave you the idea for the story? Well, really, the story's idea came about, funnily enough, it started as a screenplay about 10 years ago. I was working for a production company here in LA, and I was writing screenplays, lots of different screenplays. And I just got the idea for Santa Inc. in terms of just the words or just the name Santa Inc. And I kind of really liked that idea of exploring that idea between the holiday season and the traditions of it, and the Inc. in terms of a company, and that's the business side of it, which obviously we're all firmly entrenched in these days. And so that was the germ of the idea, and it grew from there. And I wrote it as a screenplay, and then I just put it in my virtual drawer and left it there for about 10 years. And then I basically finished the 2 prior books I was writing, which was about music. They were called Hogtown. And I picked up the screenplay and was like, I really kind of like this idea. So I started working on it, started developing it, and it really went from there. And I, from there, built out the entire world that Santa Inc. was in. I started fleshing out the characters. I think there's some really fun and interesting characters all the way through this book. And the character of Eric was designed as, or is a child, but a child who is a kind of innocent child who unlocks adults in terms of the questions that he asks and the way that he behaves towards them. He gets adults to do things that they wouldn't normally do. And just by asking simple questions to adults about why do you do things like this? Why do you want to do it that way? He sometimes irritates adults, and he sometimes gets them to do things that he wouldn't otherwise do. And that takes him on this incredible adventure, basically from being in a orphanage to, well, you'll have to read the book to see where he ends up. But I think it's a satisfying ending to it. So what I'm going to do today is happy to take whatever questions that you guys might have. I can see them in the chat right there. And then I am going to do a little bit of a reading from the book at the end. And from that point, we can take it from there, really. So if you've got any questions, feel free to drop them into the chat. The quick question that I just received from someone: where can I buy the book? So the book is available on Amazon, and you can buy it in either ebook or you can buy the print book as well. Both of them are available on, if you just search Santa Inc. on Amazon, pretty straightforward. It's the first thing that pops up, and you will be able to buy there. And hi, Caroline from Newcastle. Is that Newcastle in England or Newcastle in Australia? I assume it's in England. I'm from England originally, as you can tell. My family was from Manchester, so I've been living in California for a long time now. But I do go back to England every, well, I try to go back every year, sometimes twice a year. Obviously, this year is the first time in a long time that I haven't actually made it home. And so I think everyone's feeling this year a little bit like they've got cabin fever, a little bit like they're stuck inside. And so it's nice to be able to connect with people, even if it is on the internet, just to know that everyone's there. Carol, you're from the UK. That's great. It's been a long time since I've been to Newcastle in the UK, but it's a great town, or tune, I should say. How can I buy it? On Amazon, you can get it. Oh, we got a hello from Queensland in Australia. That's awesome. I love Australia. I actually grew up in Australia, lived there for a little bit as well. I was very lucky in terms of the fact that I went to school there for a while, and Queensland's fantastic as well. I had a great vacation once in the Whitsundays. A couple of questions dropping in. Thank you, Ross. Give me the applause there. I appreciate that. And someone did ask me prior to this, what was my Christmas routine, given that I'm in California. Is it any different? Oh, here we go. What's my favorite character in the novel, and who was the most fun to write? So basically, I think my favorite character in the novel is probably Eric, who is the main character. Although sometimes it's really fun to write those little peripheral characters because you can kind of take them to more interesting places. So I really enjoyed this. I don't want to give too much away here, but there are some nice characters and there are some less nice characters in the story, and it's always fun to write the nasty characters. Some of them, you can really kind of, especially in a story like this, which is a bit of a fantasy type story, where it's, you can really expand on just how nasty those characters are able to be. So I really enjoyed. There's one particular character called Sister Prudence who appears at the very start of the book, and she is the kind of like the Wicked Witch of the story. I've got a question here from Ross. Where did you get your inspiration to write the Christmas story, and do you prefer writing for children? Yeah, I got the inspiration really because, I'm a big fan of Christmas myself. I love everything about it. I really enjoy the whole season. As you can see, actually that side, our Christmas tree is already up. So we're making the most of it already. And we have a great time every year, and it's great because we've got small kids. So I think having kids around makes it extra special because they're so excited about it. So we're already thinking about what can we buy for them. Christmas Market 2020 is a great place to head for, obviously, for all those great Christmas little presents. And do I prefer writing for children? Yes, I really enjoy writing for children. I think there's something magical that you can introduce into a kid's book, and you can pretty much create this whole world for them. And the idea of like really accessing imaginative and creative things that can appear in the world. I look at my kids playing, and their imagination is somewhat infinite. And that's the greatest thing about writing in kids' books, is you can take it anywhere because kids will happily kind of go with you. And I actually have a new kids' book coming out. I think it's probably going to be coming out early next year in 2020. And that's a fully illustrated book. My other passion in life is model trains. And it's an illustrated book all about model trains called Jack's Tracks. Who did the illustrations for this book is a very good question. It's a guy called Timothy Banks. He's available if you want to see some of his stuff. Is on Instagram at Tim Banks. He's also illustrating the other book that's coming out, and I found him through an illustrator's website. He does great illustrations of all different types, not just book covers, but he does a lot of illustrations for like magazines and kids books and all the rest of it. And he's really cool. So Tim Banks did that. Thanks for all the comments that I'm getting. It's awesome to see people all over the world calling in. It's fantastic. And I can see, hello, Lisa from Arkansas, Deborah from Kansas City, Madison from Maine, and Laura from Colorado. That's fantastic that you guys are watching from all over the place. Oh, this is my cat. This is my cat, Fritz. Hopefully she won't do anything crazy, which she is liable to do sometimes. What was the writing process like is another question. Well, as my family knows, I just write at any spare moment. So any time that I've got. In fact, I was down here in front of this very fire at about 5 o'clock this morning, putting an hour in. So really, there is no like sit up and find my time and put some nice music on and have a glass of wine. It doesn't really work like that for me. It's just being a busy person. It's basically just write when you can, and you keep hacking away for long enough, then you eventually get a book. April, hello to you from Rhode Island, and hi Diane from Canada, and hi Kim from England. My family relocated to a place called Bournemouth in England, if anyone's been, which is a nice little town which we often go to in the summers. If you've got any further questions, then just let me know. I do have a couple of questions here as well that people. Oh, someone just asked me, where's the strangest place I ever spent Christmas? So I do have a funny story on this one. Years and years ago, it must have been about 30 years ago when I was a kid, and we were living in Australia. We went to my family. I was traveling with my mum and dad at the time, and we went to New Zealand for a vacation. We drove around New Zealand, and it was super fun and all the rest of it. We left. We spent Christmas Day in Auckland, in New Zealand, which was fun. And then we got on a plane on Christmas evening, and we flew to Tahiti. And when you fly to Tahiti that way, you basically cross the international date line. So the day completely resets. And that particular day, we got Christmas all over again. So I guess for my age, I've had one more Christmas than most people in the world, which was pretty cool for a kid to have 2 Christmases in 1 year. Apart from the fact that it was a great place to visit as well. I have a question. Call from Karen. So how did you first get published? I'm just published through, I'm an indie publisher through Amazon. It's actually the easiest way to get published these days. There's not really a whole lot, without going into the details, there's not a whole lot of point of, I don't think, getting into the traditional publishing business. I mean, clearly some of those big authors are, but hey, I can reach a great, I can reach a great audience over the internet. So this is the way we're doing it these days. A question from Zach: do you have any books in the works right now? Yes, so I do. I mentioned that I have my my Jack's Tracks illustrated book, which is going to be coming out soon, and also I've got another book in the works, which is still under wraps, but it's another child's dark kind of fantasy type book in the kind of Roald Dahl vein again. I guess he's probably my inspiration in terms of writing, just because you get those super interesting stories, dark characters, if you like, and really interesting creative type characters and storylines. All right, some more. A question from Kim: what's the best toy for a 9-month-old? Well, I would of course suggest this, but they might eat it. So I would say the best toy for a 9-month-old, something they can chew without choking on. I would have thought. My kids are a little older than that, so I don't even remember. I think I was too tired when my kids were 9 months old to even remember what toys they might like. I got a question. Would you say writing energizes you or exhausts you? I'd say that it's both. I think the answer to that is both. It's both energizing and exhausting. It takes a long time to write a book, and really it just takes a long time to go through it over and over. Work with an editor, find an illustrator, all the rest of it. But ultimately, once it gets out to the big wide world, and people start responding to it, and people give you feedback that they've enjoyed it, it's all worth it, and that's why I keep going. Another question: is there a Kindle version of Santa Inc. available? Yes, there is. You can download it on Amazon. In fact, it's right on that screen right there. If you go right there and click that link, you will find it. And also, final plugs before we get into me doing a bit of reading here. You can find me on Instagram at CJ Livingstone. You can find me on Facebook at CJ Livingstone Author, and you can find me on the internet at cjlivingstone.com. I'd love you to, if you come and drop me your email address, we can keep in contact. I'll send you any updates that's going on. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to read from this book, because that's why we're all here. So I thought the best thing to do is probably just to start, read the first chapter, because that will give you all a good idea of what it's all about. So normally I would sit back and read. So I'll make myself comfortable. You guys can make yourselves comfortable, and we'll take it from here. Okay. Our Lady of Mercy. This is a story set in the great city of New York, a city where buildings rise from the ground into forests of iron and stone, where dreams linger on every intersection and evaporate into thin air like the endlessly billowing steam from the subway grates. From Afghans to Zambians, all colors and creeds have carved their paths from the corners of the 7 continents. For 400 years, it has stood as a beacon of prosperity, freedom, and the chance for the better life. A place of endless opportunity where the captains of industry walk the corridors of influence and power, where fortunes are made and lost in a day, where the fabulously rich live far above the crowds in the most expensive buildings in the world. But lurking below the glamour and opulence, there is also a cruel and unforgiving side, a side that shows no mercy to those who have fallen on harder times, those for whom the great city is a manacle that is welded shut, those who have suffered at the hard end of life's twists and its proclivity for unhappy endings. On the corner of Gansevoort and Washington Street, in the old meatpacking district of Manhattan, was a building that stood 4 stories high in brown brick. The year 1903 proclaimed in the mossy brick above its main entrance. It had 4 rows of large, slowly rotting wooden windows and a rusty staircase that clung to its exterior and was infrequently used as a fire exit. From the street, a grandiose stone staircase made its way up to a front entrance of 2 large wooden doors. The building looked very much like any other of its type, undistinguished and in most every way, and slowly falling into an old age of disrepair. Perhaps one small distinction was the 3 gargoyles that perched high on each corner. They were odd-looking creatures with contorted faces, bulbous noses, and wild eyes. Nobody took much notice of them, and they too had grown green with the moss of neglect. It was perhaps the buildings that abutted to the left and right that condemned those 4 stories in brown into the realm of the ordinary and unimpressive, for it was dwarfed by 2 far bigger edifices that pushed their way skyward. In fact, most every building in the city was more spectacular, more eye-catching, and boasting significantly more height. As a result, no one ever paid much attention to that place, with its rotting windows, ancient door, and mossy gargoyles. It was forgotten and ignored, just like those who lived within its walls. For it was the site of Our Lady of Mercy Orphanage, home to boys who had no home. In the winter, the wind howled through the cracks in the window frames and sent shivers through those poor boys lying in their beds. The rain would often drip down from the leaking roof, through each floor, making its way slowly and inevitably to the ground, but not without first soaking something that very much needed to stay dry. Sometimes the electricity would go out for no reason, only to miraculously return hours later. But the building itself, with its drafts and its creaking floors, was not the worst part of Our Lady of Mercy. No, that distinction was reserved for those that were charged with its management. Sister Prudence, whose frame resembled a bag of dead branches, was thin and crooked, with pallid skin that had long given up attempting to attach itself to her bones. She moved about the old floors like a ghost. Sister Christine, with her hair tied in a bun and metal-rimmed glasses, was timid and conscientious. Between them they ran the orphanage. Sister Prudence, the matron, and Sister Christine, her deputy. Sister Prudence dispensed punishments freely, the most common being a firm whack to the backs of the legs with a yardstick or a wooden chalkboard eraser sent through the air towards some unsuspecting boy's head. Praise was fleeting, if at all, and she had little time for mercy. And then there were the boys, the youngest only 4 or 5 years old, the oldest nearly full grown, just about 50 of them in total, a motley bunch dressed in charity clothes that had already been handed down several times. Just like the city itself, their origins lay in the far-flung corners of the world. Not that they would know it. They too were unified by one common theme. Very few had ever known their own family. Most had simply arrived, usually before they could remember, deposited on the steps late at night or weaving through the circuitous route of temporary accommodations. Eventually, for better or worse, Our Lady of Mercy became all they ever knew. The building took care of almost everything to do with the boys' lives. On the top floor was the older boys' dorm, on the 3rd floor the younger boys' dorm. On the 2nd floor there were classrooms, and the 1st floor there was the kitchen, canteen, office, and recreation room. All were sparsely furnished with threadbare carpets or floorboards that jutted up at odd angles, causing even the most diligent among them to occasionally trip. There was a small outside yard no more than half the size of a basketball court. It was all concrete and brick, but nevertheless provided fresh air and a place to run, albeit in small circles. And underneath the building was the basement, cold, damp, and unexplored. Our Lady of Mercy Orphanage was no place to get a good start in life. And then there was Eric, lying awake in his bed on the 3rd floor, among the rows in the midst of 25 sleeping boys, the sound of air being inhaled and exhaled. All of 8 years old, he had been Our Lady since the passage of time had started for him. It was a particularly cold night, sometime in a dark mid-November, and Eric listened to the winter storm as it battered rain against the windows. He wasn't afraid, but the blast of North Atlantic air that howled through the cracks had chilled the room. He curled up in a ball and held his feet in an effort to restore some warmth to them. Eric imagined he was in the bowels of a ship, a freighter in the middle of the ocean. The rain against the windows was the salty spray from the giant waves that lashed across the decks. He was headed for the ivory coast of Africa, and the boat rocked from one side to the other as the giant swell pushed the old hulk around like a cork. Eric appeared out from his covers and looked across the large cabin. All of the other sailors slumbered in their beds, old sea dogs used to a life on the ocean waves, who could sleep through anything. He thought of the night watch above, clinging to the ship's wheel and attempting to blindly navigate through such treacherous conditions. Maybe they would hit a rock and sink before daybreak. Maybe a great sea creature like a giant squid or a kraken would rise up and swallow them whole. He hoped they would make it to the port, for he had important business to conduct there. Eric's eyes fluttered a little, and the fog of sleep came rolling in from the west, pushing the ship toward calmer weather and a small sheltered bay where dreams danced across the water. So that's the first chapter of Santa Inc. It's as you can tell, Eric is a small boy with a very vivid imagination, and that's what takes him on his adventure. So, there's some more people joined. Hello from Ireland, Nuala. Hello from Glasgow. Hello from Michigan. It's fantastic to see everyone joining from around the world. That's so cool. I hope you enjoyed, and Zach as well. My 3-year-old Morgan and I are settling in for the reading. Fantastic. I hope you enjoyed it. That's very cool. So if you've got any questions, let me know. Pretty much, I think we've got a few moments where we can answer a couple more. Otherwise, again, thank you very, very much for joining me today. I really appreciate you spending 30 minutes with me. I enjoyed meeting everyone from all over the world. I hope everyone is safe and has a great holiday vacation period. Hi, Jai from upstate New York, and get out there and buy Santa Inc. from Amazon. Merry Christmas, everyone, and have a great holidays. Bye-bye.